Hi everyone, welcome to DIY Ideas. Today I want to show you how you can do all kinds of different corners on your sewing project so that they're nice and neat. So I'm going to show you how you can do corners nicely and neatly so that you later have a really great result. So first I have here a 90-degree angle, so something that we would usually do. Then on the other side here, the smaller bit, you see a little corner I cut out. So I'm going to show you how to work multiple corners that are close to one another, as well as the sharper angle. So these are just some exemplary pieces, some leftovers that I have cut in corners, and I'm going to show you how to use that. So anyway, you're going to need some thread that matches the color of your fabric, then some regular pins, and of course your fabric scissors. So as always, make sure that your stitch is the appropriate length. That's usually mentioned in every bigger project that you do. And then we can get started. So smaller stitches are slower, of course, but they give you a bit more control over the stitch itself. So I'm going to show you how I get to the corner and then what I do. So I leave the needle on the inside. You see that I'm working really slowly here. So the needle is on the inside of the fabric, then we're going to twist the fabric. And we're basically doing just a 90-degree angle this time. And you can see sometimes here on the sewing machine, you can have labels. Most of them do. And that way you just know where your 90 degrees are. So it really helps a lot to use those lines as well. Everything that you need to take care of here is that you are at the appropriate distance away from the edge of your fabric. So not too close, but also not too far. And when you have that, you can just twist your fabric, as I said, align it with the line of your sewing machine, so the label on there, and then just keep working. So now we need to fix the leftover fabric on the right side of our stitch, and we're going to do that with our scissors. So I'm going to show you how you can fix every corner so that when you turn it inside out, it looks great. So you basically take a look at where your stitch is and cut as close as possible to the stitch, but not the stitch itself. And I usually do 2 cuts like this from both sides. That makes it a little bit nicer. And you can see here I am pretty close to the stitch. So this is, I would say, even dangerously close. So you can do a little bit less, of course. Now I'm going to do the same with the rest of the fabric, maybe not as close to the stitch, but still I'm going to cut off the excess fabric as much as I can. In this case, make sure you have some fabric that doesn't fray a lot, because that might make things a little bit more difficult. So in my case, this doesn't fray at all, which means that I can cut really, really close to the stitch itself, which you see on here. So in case it frays, then leave just a little bit more room there, or do a double stitch. You can also do a zigzag stitch along here. That way you're gonna prevent fraying as well. So you see here, I have basically just a couple of millimeters, which is exactly what we want. Now we can turn this inside out and see what our corner looks like. For this, I'm going to take my scissors, or you can even use a pencil or a pen to help you, and just push it out without ripping it, of course. So now that we did this, we can iron over it. You can see the edge here, so the stitch should be exactly on the side and not on the left or on the right. And of course, you can see that everything is looking nice and neat. So we're going to iron over this just to make sure that everything stays in place. Also, what you might need to take care of, if your fabric is a little bit thicker like mine is, then it might be a little bit trickier to work with. So as always, I like to dampen the fabric a little bit, so just make it a little bit wet. and then iron over that. Most irons have this option on top. Okay, so now let's iron over this, so I'll be back soon. So this is the corner now that I ironed over it, so you can see the stitches that are neatly placed on the side just like we wanted to, and this is basically all there is to it. So you can see that the corner is neat, and that's exactly what we want. So by making sure that we go slow, we have this precise result. I'd have a hole here if I did a little bit too much of the cutting, of course. So if I were doing a project, the other piece of fabric would go on the inside here. So I want to show you how you can do a corner that's facing the inside of the fabric, or the corner that we cut out of the fabric. So in this case, we're again doing the same thing. The stitch is a little bit smaller or a little bit less long, and then we're doing again the same thing, just working slowly with it and twisting it at a 90-degree angle at the spot where we need it to. Then we're going to cut off the leftover bits of fabric, so just like before, again taking care that we don't damage the stitch, and then we can turn it inside out and check if everything's looking good, and we can also iron over it just a tiny bit to make sure it's all flat. So now you can see both an outwards facing and an inwards facing corner, and I think the technique is pretty similar and it yields great results. So here are the first two corners. Also, if you want to see how you can neatly seam your corners and make them look good, I also have a different video on how to do that. So sometimes when you're doing tablecloths or similar things, you might need something like that. So make sure to check that out here. So now I'm going to show you how to do a sharper corner. Those might be a little bit tricky if you're a beginner, but I'm going to show you a really easy way how to do that as well. So I have here some leftover bits of fabric. Again, I cut them out, and you can see that the angle of this is a lot less than 90 degrees. So let's do that corner as well. So this is the corner we're working on. I have just this leftover bit, so it has a 90-degree angle, but we're not going to be working on that. Instead, we're just going to start on that side, and then we're just going to do a straight stitch just like so far, and then we're going to go to the sharper corner. So in this case, we can use the labels or the marks on our sewing machine. We have to do it by ourselves. So you can place a mark in advance. That's something you can do, or you can just eyeball it if you think you're secure enough. So in this case, we need our needle inside of the fabric again. We're twisting it just halfway, and then we're doing like 1 or 2 stitches or moves of the needle, maybe a couple more, 3, 4, but really not a lot. And then we want to again align the other side, the open side, with the label on here. And then we're going to continue just like we did so far. That way we give a little bit of room here so that we can turn it inside out later. And now that we did this stitch, I want to show you how you can fix this little section so that it's really looking like this when you turn it inside out as well. So for that, we're again going to cut off the leftover bits of fabric. So again, I'm going to start from the one edge, and I'm just going to cut off as much as I can. What you can also do if your fabric tends to fray, then you can work with a zigzag stitch, do a double stitch here, or even do a seamed stitch on the inside. In that case, you might not be able to cut, of course, but you might have a result that doesn't fray in the end. So this depends on the type of fabric that you're using. Most types of fabric you're going to be able to cut with. So again, just make sure that you're not damaging the stitch but are going as close to the stitch as possible. So everyone, here you can see all of the corners that we did today. So one looking outwards, one looking inwards, and one that's a little bit sharper. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you found this useful. You can let me know by shooting a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!